let's move to agenda item 3, audit committee report. And do we have Debbie here with us? Vice Chair Hart, are you?
No, we have.
Oh, Kevin. Kevin, please join us. Kevin John.
Deputy Audit Executive. Oh, do we want to take the podium down now, or do we want them to have to stand? Okay, great.
Okay, Kevin, please.
So,
Well,
yeah, so the audit committee report, we have one motion to move forward, and that is that the board approve the internal audit staff to provide consultancy services to analyze recent enrollment trends data. So a little bit of background on this. There was a request, I think, in Finance Committee to present some enrollment trends. It's awesome data, and you can check out the report, the audit report for some of that, and staff obviously could add to that. But there's an additional need to provide some additional context, some additional explanation. Some of that information can, if it's not very explicit what is being provided, you could draw conclusions that are not at all accurate. It's just, that the more complex the data, the more responsibility we have to be clear about what the data says or what the data is. What this asks for is that the board approve the adding the consultancy services project to the, so to speak, agenda of our audit team. Now, I understand that means that it might be a little ways out because of current projects and current staffing. Unfortunately, Samuel moved to Australia, and it's hard to audit from Australia. And so it would put the project out a little further. It's not bumping any of the current projects, but because the audit team, the way the audit committee works, our motions that we make there need to come to the full board for consideration. That was somewhat bumbling. Deputy, Johns, could you add to that, please?
Yeah, happy to clarify. So on the USB's website, we do provide our audit plan. So it shows the prioritized list of projects that you have already prioritized. We are currently trying to wrap up an attendance audit that was prioritized roughly a year ago. We anticipate that should be done in the forthcoming months. We're probably a couple months out on that. And we are actively engaged in your CTE audit, looking at your CTE program. That one is probably more, we're looking probably closer to summertime, where we might see that one wrapped up. So as we wrap up the attendance audit, there's an opportunity to transition to a new project. However, in November, you already prioritized an audit of advisory committees. So that would be a priority at this point as well, which means this next request here on enrollment data would follow probably after the completion of the CT audit, which is, we're looking at summertime. Now, of course, every recommendation that comes before the full board has the opportunity to both be approved and then reprioritized. So if this is a motion that you would like to approve, then you can have a discussion on where it falls in the list of priorities. And so we, of course, can pause anything and pick it up if that's the priority, or we can just add it to the back of the list. But yeah, our audit plan is always on our website under our resources there under the internal audit department, so you can see there. But yes, our understanding is there's some data that's been presented to the finance committee, and the request is that we take a look at it from a neutral position and try to provide some clarification so that anyone who sees that data has a sound understanding of what that data actually represents and what that data is attempting to say. With that said, I'm familiar enough with USB data to say that it's historically and most accurately descriptive statistics. So it's really sums, averages, counts, things of that nature. There may be a place within this data set for some inferential statistics where we could look at some correlations or relationships or things of that nature to try to provide some clarity. But without actually diving into the data, which we have not done yet, it would be hard to say at this point. So that's what I can offer at this point.
Thank you. Member Lear.
I hope I don't say this wrong, and correct me if I do, but I thought that the aspect of this that was interesting and helpful maybe for other board members to know is that it's a consultancy job or duty or part of your role. So I thought maybe a 60-second explanation of how a consultancy role differs from maybe your pure auditing role.
Kevin, please.
Okay. And I just realized that I never introduced myself, and there's some board members here that I don't think I've had the opportunity to meet. But so my name is Kevin John. I'm the Deputy Audit Executive. So I report to you, but specifically your audit committee, and have been doing that for over a decade. So it's been my pleasure. So to your point, Member Lear, the internal audit subscribes and follows the Red Book, which are standards promulgated by the Institute of Internal Auditors. Those standards allow for us to do both assurance engagements and consultation engagements. Assurance is what you would think of typically as an audit, where we come in and we look at something from a very objective and independent standpoint and provide an audit. But of course, there is value once you've spent a year analyzing data, where you can also consult and provide some support to management and those with whom we work to add value. Because ultimately, our purpose here in public education is to add value to the system. And so a consultation is just that. We're not looking to write findings, or do anything like that. Instead, we would release a report similar to an audit report, in the fact that it would be presented to you and it could be placed publicly or wherever. But the format would likely be different, and it would be more of a, yeah, we took a look at the information, here's our interpretation of it, and we hand it out. So we follow the same standards, but those standards do clarify what a consultation looks like as opposed to an insurance engagement.
Thank you. Member Bollinger.
Just a clarifying question, if I may, Chair. Just wanted to get a little bit more information. There was maybe some confusion about the data here for the enrollment trends by student groups. The total number of students it shows is 739,793. And then we've seen other numbers in some of our October 1st count numbers that were more like 677,000. Can you explain the difference between those numbers for the board members, please?
I cannot. I think that is the objective of this request. I would defer to someone like Director Aaron Bruff, who's actually running those descriptive statistics. But I think that is the impetus of this request, is so we can look in there and say, what does this number represent? If there have been other reports, there's always a possibility where we could do some comparisons or some contrasting to see, like, maybe what's the difference, what is it reporting. So yeah, so at this point we have not began to look at the data. We're waiting, of course, for your approval and then prioritization before we would dig into it. So yeah, I unfortunately don't have an answer, but I certainly could get you one in about 8 to 10 months.
And I'd like to add to that. That is exactly why Member Bogus, actually, this request originated from Member Bogus. She noticed and was speaking with constituents, I believe, who had some further questions. So it's one of those it's great that people are looking at the data, and it's great that providing the data actually raised more questions than we had originally. So that's the reason for the consultancy, and I really appreciate the clarity, Member Lear, on consultancy versus audit. We are not auditing the numbers necessarily. What we're doing is making sure that that we're answering the questions that clearly that we're trying to illustrate with the data, and in particular English language learners, there's a lot of different data sets, a lot of different information coming from a lot of different places, and we really need to tell a clear story and paint a clear picture. And so by spending a little bit more time, maybe putting second eyes on a data set and saying, hey, I had this question, maybe other people would have this question, then we're doing our due diligence in clarity. I would like to turn some time over to Member Bogus because she was the one that raised this and understands it far better than I do.
Sure. Thank you. Member Bogus.
Well, to be frank, ma'am, I think you guys have all done a great job this morning. It's really representative, and I appreciate the clarity that, I don't know your last name, Kevin, I'm so sorry. Okay, Mr. John has offered, and so I would just move that the board approve internal audit staff to provide consultancy services to analyze recent enrollment trends, data, and if I could, whoever's running the motion doc, add the language and just the simple language and add it to the list. That way we're not dealing with a prioritization vote, we're just adding it to the list, and with a second, I could speak to that motion.
Do we have a second? Second by Member Booth. Back to Member Bogus.
Thank you, Chair. So I think Member Bollinger's question is my speaking to the motion. We have data that has brought forth more questions, and so I would love to see what our very capable people in our audit department can do as they consult on this and give us some feedback, if that's a fair way to express that. And I appreciate the committee and the board's time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So we have a motion before the board that the board approves internal audit staff to provide consultancy services to analyze recent enrollment trends data and add it to the list. Seeing no additional lights, let's go ahead and vote.
Member Green is a yes.
Thank you, Member Green. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, board.